You're watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. Welcome to our news. The headlines. Mwansabombwe and Lukasha by-election ballot papers arrive in the country. President Edgar Lungu announces reopening of schools amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. A Congolese national accused of human trafficking fails to appear before the court. In international news, Nigeria's Kaduna passes law to castrate child rapists. And in sports news, CAF announces date for Cameroon African Nations Championship CHAN tournament. For the details, do join me shortly after this break.
Msika is here. We have you all covered with just 150 kwacha. You can advertise every day from 17 hours to 18 hours. For a 30-second ad, get the benefit of selling your products and services on Msika. For more details, call our marketing department on +260 953 995099 +260 962 444 726 or +260 971 177 467. Email us on info@camnettvafrica.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you a filmmaker? Well, you are exactly what we are looking for.
Camnet TV is calling on local filmmakers. For more details,
You can visit our headquarters in Ibex Hill, next to Hilltop Hospital.
contact us on
0962 444 726. Camnet TV.
not just another channel.
With the details, my name is Liseli Kanyanga. Ballot papers for the Mwansabombwe and Lukasha by-election slated for next week have arrived in the country from Dubai, where they were being printed. The ballot papers were chartered via United Arab Emirates. The plane carrying the consignment of ballot papers touched down the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport at 13:30 earlier than the expected time, which was 14:30 hours. Various political party representation witnessed the arrival of the ballot papers. We have details in this report.
Ballot papers for the 17th of September 2020, Mwansabombwe and Lukashi parliamentary by-election and 12 local government by-elections arrived in the country this afternoon from the Dubai United Arab Emirates. The plane containing the ballot papers landed before the expected time, which was 14:30 hours, according to the statement issued by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. It was, however, noted that the presence of the media was not present during the arrival of these ballot papers. Those present during the witnessing of the arrival of the ballot papers were some representatives from the UPND, the PF, among others. The verification of the ballot papers with the participating political parties will take place on Saturday, the 12th of September, around 09 hours at the ECZ. These by-elections follows the death of Rogers Mwewa for Mwansabombwe constituency and Mwenya Mukonge for Lukashi constituency on July 18, 2020. However, it is expected of voters to ensure that they maintain peace before, during and after these by-elections. Miriam Kemba, reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
President Edgar Lungu has directed all schools and colleges to reopen, adding that he is aware of the negative impact the closure of educational institutions has had on pupils, students, teachers, and generally the public. Speaking when he opened the 5th session of the 12th National Assembly, anchored on the theme Resilience and Innovation, Pursuing Economic Recovery for the Zambia We Want, the head of state says while pupils were encouraged to use virtual platforms, many did not manage due to resource vulnerabilities. He adds that digital platforms include buying of internet bundles, which sometimes proved to be expensive for most poor families. The president has to this effect announced the reopening of all schools, colleges and universities with caution between the 14th and the 28th of September 2020, subject to adherence to public health certification, guidelines and regulations. The Ministry of General Education and the Ministry of Higher Education have since been advised to come up with modalities that will ensure all pupils and students catch up after losing 6 months of the academic calendar.
Mr. Speaker, I have also heard the cries of pupils, the cries of students, the cries of teachers and lecturers, the cries of parents, and the cries of owners of schools, including the ministries of general education and higher education, concerning reopening of learning institutions. Mr. Speaker, I am aware that the non-reopening of schools has led to loss of gains made by the learners, and more importantly, all non-examination classes may be at the same level next year. The current examination classes would have no space to progress next year and hence may also lose a year. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, I therefore wish to announce the reopening of all schools, colleges and universities, of course again with caution. And this will have to be done between the 14th of September 2020 and 28th of September 2020, subject to adherence to public health certification, guidelines and regulations, and also to allow for satisfactory and adequate consultation and preparations by all relevant authorities, including parents and guardians. The Ministry of General Education and the Ministry of Higher Education must come up with modalities that will ensure all pupils and students catch up after losing 6 months of the academic calendar, which may include revising the curricula. I also urge the two ministries to ensure strict compliance with the COVID-19 measures. I'm encouraged to reopen the schools in the context of the new normal, as espoused by the World Health Organization, WHO.
Meanwhile, the National Union for Public and Private Educators in Zambia, NUPEZ, has welcomed the President's directive to open schools under the new normal. NUPEZ General Secretary Nelson Mwale tells Camnet TV that a lot of learners were getting depressed, emphasizing that the teacher should ensure that the health guidelines are followed to avoid making the learners agents of spreading the pandemic. And speaking on the same matter, Musokotwane Compassion Mission Zambia MCM's Executive Director Sibuku Genius Musokotwane says the decision to reopen schools will help child learners with grade progression and fulfilling their right to education. He called on parents and other stakeholders to ensure children are masked up and adhere to guidelines.
Members of the press, as Musokotwane Compassion Mission Zambia MCMZ, we want to welcome the decision and the announcement by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zambia, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, on the reopening of all schools across the country. This decision will not only help the child learners with great progression and them fulfilling their right to education, but it will also play a vital role in our quest as a country to ensure that girls are girls and not brides, as well as reduce the teenage pregnancy prevalence in our schools, as well as contain violence against children. We must note that the continued closure of schools was posing as a threat for the country to maintain the already gained efforts in the fight against child marriage and teenage pregnancies since the year 2007, when we had the 2007 Zambia Demographic Health Survey. We believe with this move, more girls will be kept safe.
The Bars and Nightclubs Owners Association Secretary General Edmond Lifwekelo has welcomed President Edgar Lungu's directive that bars and nightclubs be open with caution. Mr. Lifwekelo has appealed to bar and nightclub owners to adhere to the presidential directive as they start operating and observe COVID-19 guidelines. Mr. Lifwekelo says bar and nightclub owners must not only be overexcited and forget to follow the health guidelines. Mr. Lifwekelo was speaking to Camnet TV shortly after President Lungu's announcement of reopening of bars.
The announcement made by the president to partially reopen bars and nightclubs has left many around the city of Lusaka in jubilation. However, despite this decision, President Edgar Lungu has put in stiff measures that bars and nightclubs will only operate from Friday and Sunday while adhering to the directive put in place. The president made this announcement during the 5th session of the 12th National Assembly.
In March this year, I ordered the closure of bars, taverns, and nightclubs, among other outlets, in order to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. While other outlets have since reopened under public health guidelines, bars, taverns, and nightclubs have not. This is because of the danger that COVID-19 pandemic poses to these outlets. I'm cognizant of the suffering that owners of bars, taverns, and nightclubs have experienced since the closure. I'm aware of the consequential suffering of their employees and related businesses. The employers have struggled to pay salaries and to maintain them. The employees, on the other hand, have barely survived, and many of them have become destitute. I know they have struggled to make ends meet, and their livelihoods are in disarray. Mr. Speaker, I therefore wish to announce the partial reopening of these outlets from Fridays to Sundays with immediate effect. But of course, with serious caution that all public health guidelines are strictly adhered to. These outlets shall operate from 18 hours to 23 hours.
And Bars and Nightclubs Owners Association Secretary General Edmond Lifwekelo has thanked the head of state for this decision.
Okay, as Bars and Nightclubs Owners Association of Zambia, we are excited by the announcement of the partial opening of our business premises by His Excellency the President. This is what we expected, and this is what we've been looking for the past 5 months now, almost 6 months. And, it's quite good news because half a loaf is better than nothing. We know that everything has got a starting point. I think to us, this is a starting point also that we need to observe how we are going to live in the new normal. Because we've always been saying that, this pandemic, we don't know when it might go away. So the idea was learn how to live with it. I think the better for us.
Meanwhile, Mr. Lifwekelo has urged bars and nightclubs owners to adhere and follow the measures put in place by government or risk being closed permanently.
So please appeal to our members, much as this is good news, much as let us not complain about the hours we've been given, because we are quite aware why the president has made such kind of a decision, and we are quite just very, very happy. So let us prove a point. As an association, I don't think, we are not going to protect anyone who will be found wanting, because the president has been quite very clear that he's not going to hesitate to close down any person actually who's going to flout this, even to close us. The president says he's going to close us. So we're not going to allow 1 or 2 members to risk the closure of the rest of the members. So as an association, actually, we are going to work closely with government to ensure that this pilot project, which the president calls pilot project, that it succeeds. After all, it's for the benefit of all of us.
Few months ago, the president had announced the closure of bars and nightclubs and other sectors of the economy to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in the country. Miriam Kemba, reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
The Zambians for Unity, Peace and Development, ZUPED, says that the president Friday address to the nation is timely, inspiring, and to the best interest of the citizenry. ZUPED President Mary Ngoma tells the media that her organization is grateful for the message of hope to the Zambian people, especially now that the country is experiencing health challenges, climate change, and economic challenges such as failing commodity prices on the international market. ZUPED is therefore re-emphasizing the president's call on the need for Zambians to hold hands together to champion development across all regions. Ms. Ngoma says the core of upholding key national values cannot be overemphasized, adding that Zambians, regardless of their political, religious, and ethnic background, must rise to the occasion to champion peace, unity, and denounce any form of tribalism.
The Zambians for Unity, Peace and Development, which is ZUPED, finds in the speech delivered by the head of state timely, inspiring, and to the best interest of its citizenry. ZUPED thanks the President of the Republic of Zambia for his messages of hope amidst many challenges which include the outbreak of the coronavirus, climate change, and economic challenges such as falling commodity prices on the international market. As ZUPED, we continue to thank the head of state for providing exemplary leadership despite criticism from some sections of society. The call by His Excellency, the President, on upholding key national values cannot be overemphasized. Zambians, regardless of their political, religious, and ethnic background, must rise to the occasion to champion peace, unity, and denounce any form of tribalism, as this is ZUPED's mandate. ZUPED re-emphasizes the President's call for the need for Zambians to hold hands together to champion development across all regions. ZUPED would like to commend government for its commitment to reducing poverty, creating prosperity, delivering on social protection, education, and health. This is evidenced by government's release of 8 billion kwacha COVID-19 stimulus.
A 20-year-old Congolese male has appeared before the Lusaka Magistrate Court with 2 counts for allegedly smuggling people into the country. This is in a matter in which Arnold Mputa, a Congolese, is jointly charged with Alice Zulu and Imwaki Musambuko, who are charged with 1 count of smuggling of persons into Zambia, contrary to Section 9 of the Penal Code Anti-Human Trafficking Act number 11 of 2018 of the laws of Zambia. Allegations are that the duo, on dates unknown, but between 1st September 2019 and 26th May 2020 in Lusaka, jointly and whilst acting together with other persons unknown, did aid or smuggle 14 Congolese nationals into Zambia. When the matter came up for plea before Magistrate Felix Kauma, all the 3 accused were not present before the court. The accused are expected to appear in court soon for plea. We now take a break, but still to come in the news, the Human Rights Commission go on the streets to sensitize members of the public on COVID-19. Stay tuned.
Stay home, stay safe. Times have changed. With the advent of the coronavirus, Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company would like to advise its esteemed customers to avoid visiting crowded places. You don't have to move to pay your water bill. you can do it in the convenience of your home. You can pay your water bills through Zanaco Zapit, Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and FNB. You can also use Airtel, MTN, and Zamtel Kwacha mobile money transfer services. For any inquiries to report a fault, please contact our customer service on +260 211 251 571, +260 975 618 618, and toll-free line 5957, Zamtel only. You can also simply email customerservice@lwsc.com. This public announcement is brought to you by the Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company. Water is life. Sanitation is health.
I have used Oracle Pure Glycerin for 2 years now. It has really worked for me. It has cleared all the black spots on my face. It has restored my skin beauty. It also smoothens the skin. Try Oracle Pure Glycerin for perfect skin. If it's not Oracle Glycerin, then it's not pure glycerin.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with the news. Police in Solwezi have received a report of incest which occurred on the 3rd of September 2020 around 07 hours of Mitukutuku area of Solwezi district. Details of the report state that Yvette Mwala, aged 42, of Kazomba area, Solwezi district, reported that her granddaughter, Blessings Dwenje, aged 16, of Mitukutuku area, was sexually abused by her biological father, identified as Robert Luenje, aged 38, of Mitukutuku area. According to the victim, the suspect started abusing her in 2019, but she kept quiet due to intimidation by the suspect. The victim sustained a painful and bruised vagina. The suspect is in police custody and will appear in court soon. And moving on in other news, the Human Rights Commission has intensified its efforts to insensitizing the public about the COVID-19 pandemic. HRC spokesperson Mwelwa Muleya says the commission is concerned about the people trading in crowded places, making them more vulnerable to contracting COVID-19. He explains that most of the people are busy and fail to adhere to guidelines that will help them avoid contracting the disease. Mr. Muleya says the sensitization is meant to remind them of the important task of taking care of their health. We have more in this report.
The COVID-19 pandemic has united the country for the better. Individual organizations are joining the fight by ensuring that people are sensitized to do the right thing as they conduct their day-to-day activities. Friday morning, the Human Rights Commission sensitized members of the public conducting businesses along Lusaka's Lumumba Road, especially those who sell second-hand clothes, better known as Salaula. Human Rights spokesperson Mwelwa Muleya tells Camnet TV that the decision to sensitize people that conduct businesses, especially in crowded places, was arrived at after realizing that they are more vulnerable both financially and health-wise. Mr. Muleya says the Commission is concerned that most of the people trading in these areas are breadwinners who should not in any way be found contracting the COVID-19 as this would disrupt the living conditions.
Human Rights Commission, we are concerned about the COVID-19 pandemic because of the socio-economic impact it has on society, and we have been involved in community-based public awareness activities to ensure that there is a strict adherence to public health regulations on COVID-19. These critical members of society who are breadwinners in their own respect, the socio-economic impact will be so grave on their livelihood. They are adhering to the public health regulation guidelines on COVID-19. We have seen that others are adhering, others are not adhering. So if others are adhering and others are not adhering, they are undermining the fight. So we are trying to ensure that there is that behavioral change.
Ms. Samlea, however, is concerned that while some people are complying with the health guidelines such as masking up, others are reluctant. He has advised the people to ensure that they protect themselves from the pandemic by following simple laid-down health guidelines.
We are calling upon those who are not observing these public health regulations and guidelines, particularly in terms of wearing masks and maintaining social distance, to start adhering to these regulations. It's in their best interest that their rights to health and life are very critical. You cannot compromise on your rights to health and life. And prevention is the best that we can do in this pandemic. We just follow these guidelines and reduce the risks of contracting or transmitting the virus to others. So we hope that with time, people will start adhering. This is a new norm. People have to get used to it.
Zambia has been fighting the COVID-19 pandemic from March 2020 when the first case was recorded. It is hoped that soon the fight will be won. Sharon Kalimbula, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Minister of Health Chitalu Chilufya says government has made strides in improving the health sector, hence recording low cases of COVID-19. This improvement has resulted in government deciding to relax some of the measures such as opening of schools among other economic activities. The minister says government is still concerned about people's reluctancy to observing health guidelines. The minister reveals that Zambia has in the last 24 hours recorded 109 cases out of 1,133 tests done. The cases are widespread across the country. One death has been recorded of a young female who was left behind a 6-day-old baby.
In the last 24 hours, we have recorded 106 new cases of COVID-19. And these new cases have been reported in various parts of the country, reflecting yet again the widespread geographic spread of the COVID-19. So if we look at 106 was for yesterday, today is 109 new cases. And this has been out of 1,133 tests. And the districts still reflect that general infection. But on a very sad note, we lost a young mother, postnatal, the first maternal mortality in the COVID outbreak, who presented with severe pneumonia. This young mother leaves behind a 6-day-old baby. Our sympathies go to her family, despite the efforts that our teams put in. We lost this young mother. May her soul rest in peace. We have 52 patients admitted in our various health facilities, and 19 of them are on oxygen.
Government has noted with concern that Zambia, under the current and future climate regimes, is susceptible to adverse conditions of climate change such as frequent droughts, floods, and usually high summer temperatures. National Development Planning Ministry Permanent Secretary Chola Chavala says these conditions negatively impact sectors such as agriculture, water, energy and health, among others. He says the energy sector in Zambia is particularly vulnerable owing to the fact that the country is largely dependent on hydropower for most of its energy needs. The PS has therefore noted the need to reducing greenhouse gases emissions, as this has the potential to change the way Zambians interact with the natural environment and Zambia's future economic growth through anchoring sustainable generation of hydroelectric power. Mr. Chavala was speaking at a workshop for the project on reducing greenhouse gases emissions for deforestation and forest degradation and enhancing rural livelihoods in the headwaters of the Zambezi River.
For Zambia has been the development of low carbon pathways that mitigate greenhouse gas emissions and promoting climate resilience in the most vulnerable sectors of the economy. One of the pathways in which Zambia is promoting green growth is through the promotion of renewable energy such as hydro, geothermal, solar, wind, biomass and biofuels. Given the history of energy in Zambia, it is evident that hydroelectric power is very cardinal and therefore provide an opportunity to be harnessed as low-hanging fruit that is easily relevant for socio-economic gains. Against this backdrop, Zambia has identified 3 programs to facilitate the ongoing mitigation of climate change. And these include sustainable forest management, linking sustainable agriculture and renewable energy. And as a country, through our nationally determined contribution, we submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change
The Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, DMMU, has taken the district administration in Mwansabombwe to task for not distributing relief food to the 200 families whose houses collapsed due to heavy rains last year. This follows a complaint from Headman Mumbolo to the DMMU National Coordinator Chanda Kabwe. Mr. Chanda wondered why people have not received food since April, while the Office of the Vice President has been sending relief food every month. He said it is such attitudes that make people think that government does not care about them. Mr. Chanda later distributed relief food and building materials to the affected households, with each family receiving 12 roofing sheets and 10 pockets of cement. He said government will deal with any officer who will be found frustrating government programs by not giving the relief support to the intended beneficiaries.
Kwisa fikirisha amashuya kwa kateka wa kino kyalo kwa President Edgar Chagwa Lungu kutila ati bali ababundirwe ifyakulya ubuteko bwa PF, ubuteko bwa balanda, ubuteko bwatemwa omuntu wonse bwambi okumupera efyakulya mpaka uyu mwaka ilo mukakwata amaka akuilimina n'okusombola abamanda yawire onso otushingulwiki oku kali buteko bwatira na ng'ombe pabana kachitashani bakateka kali batira yonse amanda yabundire kuno chiranganda yalapuka simenti 10 na malata 12 pakuchiranganda ifimbi ya malata
bantu bali mu bushiku n'abalala n'ombokwisa umfukineku amenshia isayele poma emukutira emenshia ya isayele poma kanshi na yatenuna no mushiri na yapita na panshi ya mushiri na mayanda ya tampo kutoka kubantu balira mutule na kine nefya abantu babafuirisha bali bashimako fyo tutotera bambi emobekala bambi tabakwata napa kwikala bapanga fetuma yanda utwa misakuta emo balala okufika nelelo tabakwata obwika shibusumayo kanse ikibalefu ayo bwafuirisho kubuteko ipira babafuirishe beka ekonga abantu pai pabwafuirisho bakateka watu afuirisha tuli abatotera sana twawira banka sashabo ififine efye beraleka bale twafu afye ifine kabiri nemfwe tuli kuntanshi yabo tatwakabaluse nebumba byonse lili pantanshi yabo nemubene mukwayi mwe baleterya amashuwi kuli fwewo tuli pantanshi yenu.
We now take a break. Still to come is international and sports news.
To create a positive difference in people's lives, one must first understand the way people live. At Savenda, we're here for our community, our partners, and our future, as a nation and as a continent.
Back in 1997, we decided we were going to create this family journey into a bigger opportunity, and created a business called Savenda, which meant save nations to develop Africa.
It's always important to give back to the people. The government cannot do everything, but as business entities, we'll be able to reach a lot of people.
From our humble beginnings in the telecoms and mining sectors to our work in energy and development projects, we know how important it is to be true to our roots.
Our services have to be diversified so that we don't depend on one income stream. Back in the village, I was growing up hunting and doing everything that a village boy would like to do. When you're hunting, you don't depend on one trap, for example. You have to have many traps. So those survival skills brought into the business created opportunities that we learned from a young age that you can't survive with just one product. Savenda Group involves Savenda Management, which is a consulting, Savenda Express, which is a corporate branding company, Savenda Electric, which is a manufacturer of energy saving bulbs, Savenda General Insurance, which is a general insurance company, Savenda Fresh Produce, Cyber Africa, which is a center for just dealing with cyber security.
Now, Savenda is combining local knowledge with international expertise. It's time to be a part of Zambia's rising success and Africa's exciting future.
We are a gateway into Africa, and now we are praying with global companies who are coming to Zambia for opportunities and to look for companies that are homegrown, and we are proud to be one of those.
You're watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. We continue with the news. In international news, lawmakers in Nigeria's Kaduna state have approved surgical castration as punishment for those convicted of raping children under the age of 14. State Governor Nasir El-Rufai needs to sign the bill for it to become law in the northwestern state. He has previously supported castration to prevent rapists from reoffending. Nigeria's federal law provides between 14 years and life imprisonment as punishment, but state legislators can set different sentencing rules. In June, Nigerian governors declared a state of emergency over rape and violence against women and children. Since 2015, when a new law was introduced, about 40 rape suspects have been charged, according to the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, which has a sex offenders list on its website. And in Colombia, the death toll from protests against the police have risen to at least 10 people. Al Jazeera has more on these stories.
For a second straight night, demonstrators clashed with security forces as they rallied against the killing of an unarmed man by the police. Protesters hurled rocks, blocked roads, and attempted to burn neighborhood police stations. Since the riot began on Wednesday, at least 9 people have been killed and more than 60 were injured by firearms allegedly shot by the police.
This is happening because people are fed up. At some point, the pressure explodes, and if people need to die, so be it. But there has to be a solution.
The mayor of Bogota, Claudia Lopez, urged protesters to refrain from violence, but compared the police response to the worst days of Colombia's armed conflict.
The indiscriminate of firearms cannot be considered police abuse. This is a direct attack on unarmed citizens, civilians, the vast majority of them young people.
The protests were sparked by this video of 43-year-old Javier Ordóñez being pinned to the ground by 2 officers for violating coronavirus rules. The agents repeatedly tasered him as he begged, "Please no more." He died soon after. His sister-in-law says that Ordóñez was assassinated and demanded justice.
This wasn't an abuse, it was murder. 2 agents killed my brother-in-law, and it can't end in a disciplinary action. It has to be a penal one. My brother-in-law was killed by the violence and the hatred we have nurtured for years in Colombia. The last thing we wanted was that his death sparked more violence.
The government said abuse of power should not be tolerated, but insisted authorities are facing massive acts of vandalism and violence. Many Colombians say these demonstrations show people's anger goes beyond the issue of police brutality.
We need real fundamental change in this country, and the vandalism doesn't help, but is a way to call the government and the people's attention. Because this year we've seen many human rights leaders killed, the economy falling apart. We need change.
It's clear that people's frustration has reached a boiling point with the killing of Javier Ordóñez. The question now is if these protests will be the spark that will revive the kind of mass demonstrations that have rattled the country at the end of last year. Alessandro Ampietti, Al Jazeera, Bogotá.
We now look at sports news. The Confederation of African Football, CAF, has announced that the Cameroon African Nations Championship, CHAN, will now be held from January 16th to February 7th, 2021. According to Thursday's decisions of the CAF Executive Committee meeting, the tournament, which was initially scheduled for the 4th to the 25th of April 2020 and postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, will be in effect on the 4th substitution rule in the event of extra time at the knockout stages of the competition. The 2022 CHAN tournament in Algeria has also been rescheduled to January 2023, and the exact dates will be discussed with the Algerian Football Federation. Other decisions reached at the Executive Committee meeting include the rescheduling of the dates for the 2021 Under-17 African Cup of Nations Morocco to 13th to the 31st of March 2021, following a request by the Royal Moroccan Football Federation. Concerning CAF Women's Champions League, each of the 6 CAF zones will organize qualifiers to determine the finalists for the 8-team tournament, who will include the host and 1 additional team. This is according to Football Association of Zambia FAS Facebook page. That sports item brings us to the end of the news, but before we go, a look at the headlines once again. Mwansabombwe and Lukasha by-election ballot papers arrive in the country. President Edgar Lungu announces reopening of schools amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. A Congolese national accused of human trafficking fails to appear before the court. In international news, Nigerians Kaduna passes law to castrate child rapists. And in sports news, CAF announces date for Cameroon African Nations Championship CHAN tournament. The Camnet verse of the day is coming from the book of Psalms 147 verse 3, and it reads, "He healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds." This has been Liseli Kanyanga. God bless.